This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 229, The Valve Stem Sales Strategy, an interview with Corey Phillip.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers. And before I get started, I'd like to thank everybody, all the Sales Babblers out there that helped me with my LinkedIn experiment. I wrote an article on storytelling using the story process. And I got a lot of people to comment and like it. And some people said some really nice things. But more interesting, the whole idea was to somehow bump up the visibility of the article and to see if I could get even more people, strangers, people I don't even know, to self-qualify and like it. And that really did work. Over the weekend, I wrote up the results of this event, and for all of you who are on the Sales Babble email list who have subscribed, I kind of explained what the final results were as of that day, and it was super duper interesting. And in fact, I'm going to move farther on this, and we will be having a guest in the next month or so to talk about strategies of better leveraging LinkedIn and to get more people to see your posts and articles and things like that, because if people like this stuff, they are self-qualifying themselves. They are hot prospects, and that's what we are all about. So to keep with the story theme, our guest today is actually Corey Phillip. He is the author of the Valve Stem Sales Strategy, and this strategy is interesting that he places the price of the product in the middle of the presentation. And the reason he does that is it kind of lets out the pressure of the sale, the anxiety of it, so you as a seller can move on to talk about value and credibility and to build trust with stories. This is a very interesting topic. I think you're going to love Corey. We have a lot of fun. So, with no further ado, let's get to it. Welcome, Corey. Are you ready to babble?
Yes, man. Let's get to it.
Corey, you've got a sales method called the Valve Stem Sales Strategy. And I believe it's focused towards contractors, right? Why did you write this?
You know, man, it's a great question. It is certainly for contractors, home improvement sales. That's what I do. I'm a contractor, own a contracting business, but you can basically apply it to nearly anything you want to sell. You know, so that said, I own a contracting company, started it back in 2012. I was quite young at the time. I was 22. I had no sales experience. To kind of put it into perspective, my education was in accounting, and if you're familiar with accountants, you know they are not natural salespeople by any stretch of the imagination. So, like most contractors, I'm going out doing estimates, and basically what I'm getting is a lot of, oh, thanks for your time, nice meeting with you today. We'll call you back when we're ready to do it. And at the same time, I'm kind of absorbing sales content, studying it, and I hear about all these people closing. They're closing 40 to 50% of their deals. My closing rate is like abysmal, down probably 10 to 20% on a good week. And I'm trying to figure out, what do I need to do? How do I get better? How do I improve it?
What kind of contractor were you?
Well, I am a contractor. It's an aluminum contracting trade, and that particularly exists in Florida. We do screen enclosures, patios, sunrooms. So,
to keep the bugs out.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And then, of course, we do other patio and decks. So in kind of a broad scope of things, you'd call us an exterior contractor.
Oh, okie dokie. All right. So you're studying, you said your background's in accounting, though?
Yeah. Well, I never had any actual corporate experience in that. That's what I got my degree in and started the business when I was still in college, just about to graduate. So never actually went the corporate route, but my education was in accounting.
So you were studying sales, and then what happened?
Well, so I kind of start absorbing the sales content out there, and I'm finding a lot of stuff on hard sell tactics, the typical sales stuff. And then I got in touch with a company that does basically the same trade, but they operate in a different area, several hours away. I kind of had a connection there, and they were really great salespeople over there. They sell a ton. At the time, they were far, far bigger than my company. And I kind of got the connection to go and train with them. And what they were doing was essentially hard sell tactics. One of the big things that they would do is, they'd kind of put the price down in front of the homeowner. All right, we calculated up, you're $10,900. Wait a second and then say, can you afford this? And it was either, well, like peacock up your feathers, like, yes, I can afford this, of course, great, we'll buy it. Or no, I can't. Okay, well, we can put you, onto financing plan. So stuff like that. And I learned this stuff, and I'll say this because a lot of contractors and people say hard sell tactics don't work. They do work. I've seen them work, and I've used them myself, but it wasn't something I was comfortable with. I kind of felt just not so ethical, untrue to myself, sleazy, if you will, when I'm out there, using these tactics and trying to get people to close them really hard right on the spot, in the first appointment. So I knew I kind of needed something better than that. I needed something that I was comfortable with.
This is the thing, though. It kind of gives people a distasteful experience, and I'm a strong believer in like references and referrals. I think it's going to be more difficult to get, to get people to like send their friends to you when they've had a distasteful experience.
Exactly. I mean, that's my thought too. Yes, you will sell more upfront. You're going to get more signatures on that dotted line. You're going to collect more deposit checks. You will get the boost in revenue, when you're hard selling like that. But you're starting off the project on the wrong foot. So if the customer wasn't or didn't come to the realization that they purchased it or that they wanted it, you've got to work with this disgruntled customer. And it's not like selling a car, whereas, you sell the car, papers are signed, and they drive off, the deal is done. On a home improvement project like that, it's often going to take several months that you have to actually work with the customer because it's just not a sign and drive type of thing. It's something that requires collaboration, and they're living in your job site and you're working in their home. So it's very kind of personal, very intricate, and starting off the process, on the wrong foot because of hard selling tactics. This isn't something that's effective in any means, or I shouldn't say isn't effective. It is effective, but it's not something I suggest in any means. But particularly in contracting, it is extremely difficult, to kind of keep the positive momentum after that.
So what did you conclude after maybe kind of like getting tutored on their sales method?
Yeah, so I got tutored on it, and I went out there and put it into use myself. And like I said, it does work, but it just wasn't something I was too comfortable with because I could already tell, when I was selling it, I'm like, this person isn't too thrilled about this. They're doing it, yes, but they're going to be difficult. They're going to make my life difficult for the next few months that we're going to have to work together. So I wasn't really liking it. Kind of started thinking through and figuring out, okay, how can I make a presentation? Because you need to have a presentation and go through, a logical flow when you're out there with the customers. How can I put that together in a way that isn't salesy? And that's how I kind of arrived at the valve stem sales strategy, pulling together, little bits of things that I knew and things that were working and putting them together in a way that flows and lets the customer realize and builds enough trust that they want to hire you to get the project done.
So I gotta ask, valve stem? What's that about?
Good question. Essentially, what we're doing, or why I came up with the name valve stem, is because it puts the price right in the middle, like a valve stem, and it lets out all the pressure. So that's what we got. So the big, the major difference here, there's a few differences between, a lot of traditional sales and the valve stem sales strategy here is the price is positioned in the middle of the whole presentation, whereas in typical sales presentation, it usually comes at the end, and then there's kind of an attempt to close the deal. So do all the fact finding, give a price, try to close a deal. Here we kind of put the price in the middle and then take the focus off of the price and, come back to close the sale, much further down the line.
Yeah. So all right. So let's dig into this. Let's walk through the process through how many steps you got, like half a dozen steps, I assume.
Yeah, so it's a 6-step process, start off with your introductions, the pleasantries, and I always like to use this opportunity to kind of position yourself as new, unique, or different right off the bat. So we'll lead in with the question, do you know anyone that we've done any work for before? And if they say yes, that's awesome, so you already know how we do things quite a bit different than your typical contractor. So you're subconsciously positioning yourself already. And if they say no, you can just say, oh, no worries. We're taking new clients. We work with a lot of new clients. In the next few minutes, you're going to see how we do things quite a bit differently. So no matter what the answer is to that, you can always position yourself as unique and different. And that's something that's crucial. You'll see that as we're going through the strategy, but so many contractors are just kind of commoditized, or the homeowners look at them as commoditized. So setting that tone up front, we find works pretty well.
Keep going.
And then from there, we'll get into the fact finding, discussing the project. I'd like to go through it very thoroughly. So if you're out there, let's say that you are, well, in my case, we're doing patios and decks. Don't just say, okay, we're going to pour some concrete over there. Talk about each step, how you're going to go through the process, build value in this case, and also price condition. Let the customers know that this isn't just a one and done type of deal here. We're going to have to come out here with an excavator. We're going to take out all the trees, all the landscaping that's in here. Then once we get the sod up, we're going to find out how level the ground is. The look is deceiving. You never quite know how level the ground is. Even though it looks level, we might, put a level out there, string line it off and find out it's got a lot of slope. So in that case, we're going to have to bring in some fill dirt. We're going to square off the edges. We're going to do the form boards like this. We're going to use a 2x8, not a 2x4 because of this reason, etc. Go into details. This is pretty typical sales stuff, but really, drive home everything that you're doing in the step-by-step process. So many people don't do it. They're just like, oh, we're going to pour a 10x20 over there, in the case of this example, a slab, but they don't explain exactly how they're going to do it. So put a verbal visual behind the steps.
So what I'm hearing here is that what you're doing, not only you're going to explain the process, but you're explaining the value that you're giving them, the reason why we're doing this.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So, that's nothing new. Go ahead and get that in step 2, and then calculate the price. Now, this is kind of a little, Jedi mind trick of sorts. I'm not really into these, but I do it on this one. I won't present a number that's kind of rounded to 1,000. So if it's like $5,000, I'm not going to present that number. I'll, make it 5,000 and change, or 5,000 and say $20 or something like that. Little trick I got up my sleeve. Whether it actually makes a difference or not, I don't know, but I like doing it. But at this point, present the price, and kind of tell the customer what the price is. The cost of your patio project here, it's going to be $5,020. And I find that when most people get this price, and I've kind of found this through some surveying that I've done of, our target audience, I will say, which is homeowners with a home value of above a certain point. We actually ran some Facebook ads to kind of build this survey and get this response. But a lot of people put up this barrier to just say no. So they get a price, and then once they get the price, they're like, uh-oh, I'm being sold now, So they need to feel like they have made the purchase on their own. But once they get the price, they've got this barrier of just say no. And this is where traditional sales tactics are going to go into closing, kind of getting through that barrier, beating it down, etc. And this is where a lot of contractors drop off. And this is where the customers say, well, nice meeting with you. Thanks for your time. You seem professional and knowledgeable. I'll call you if I have any questions or want to go ahead with it. And most contractors, pick up their, if they're, experienced in sales or semi-experienced, they've at least got a binder and presentation binder, but others, have nothing other than a tape measure, but they pick up whatever they brought and walk away. So at that point, I'd like to, take the focus off the price, and I'll say, let me show you some similar projects we've done. And at this point, I've got a tablet. We've got pictures of all of our past projects, or not all of them, but a few in each category. And I'll pull that tablet out and start sliding through the pictures and telling the story behind each picture. So, this was a project we did a few miles from here for so-and-so. This was the challenge they had, or this is the reason why they wanted it. Look how it turned out. And we'll slide through, and it comes very naturally. Customers like seeing it. At that point, they're getting that trust built up again, and they're distracted, I should say, from the actual price. So they're seeing projects that are going to be like theirs, and that's the important part too. You want to show projects that are semi-relative to what they're getting and tie it in, show them your experience. Hey, look how many times we've done this one, and that's just like yours. From there, we'll go into the company. So after a few minutes of sliding through the project pictures, we'll go in and start talking about the company and tell the company story. And I've got pictures of everything from our office to our key people, and I'll slide through them and say, hey, there's our fleet of trucks parked out there. We've got over 20 trucks. We don't just subcontract your projects to anyone. It's all done in-house. Here is the shop foreman. He's going to be the one that's responsible for cutting out your project and doing the prefabrication work on it. Here's Jane. She's our permit lady. She loves permits. She knows more about them than anyone I know. I hate the permitting department. Really glad we have Jane on our team. Go through, just tell everybody hates the permitting department. I'll tell you that. Permitting contractors. If you're a contractor listening, you know what permits are like. They're necessary evil, but dealing with them is brutal. But go through your whole company and tell the story. Put some people behind it. Let your customers know why you're in business, why you like being in business, and who's going to be getting your job done and what resources you have to get the job done. Because so many companies, so many contractors just show up in a truck and that's it. It's like the Wizard of Oz. The customer never gets to see what's behind the curtain.
So what you're doing these
show them spot.
So what's what's going on here? These last two steps is all about building trust in their mind.
That's it. And so many people, a lot of people do this, but they'll do this early on and then they'll get to the price. What we're doing here is we're taking this stuff, and putting it after the price.
I love it. Love it.
Getting reacquainted awesome. And goes, you're positioning the value where it needs to be to get the result that you want is essentially what's happening here.
I love it. This totally makes sense. Okay, so after you talk about the company, then what happens?
So, so at that point, we've done some trust by showing the project. We've done the story on the company. And at that point, you got to go back to closing it. So what's working for us is what's called an assumptive close. And we just basically say, should we get this written up? Now, that's, there's a million ways you can slice and dice it, but my salespeople, my team of 6 salespeople, that's their go-to line. That's their favorite one, and that's what's working quite well for us. So, should we get this written up after you've kind of done all the storytelling? And I find that at that point, if there's an objection, they usually come right out and say it. Rather than presenting a price, they're just going to kind of say no. They're not really going to tell you what the true objection is. But at this point, they're pretty comfortable with you. They've had some good connection there. They can relate to your story. And if they do have an objection, they usually come out and say it. But for what it's worth, we're selling quite a few, with just, should we get this written up? And they kind of, if it's a husband and wife, they'll look at each other and usually nod their head yes.
Okay, so I got 3 questions there. So what percent of the people say yes?
What percentage of the people say yes?
Versus say have an objection. Or maybe the better question is, what percent of the people have an objection right after all of this? Is it common?
Is it common? I will say it is less common than when you're doing something else. So we're
talking valve stem process.
Yeah. So let me kind of go, or not go back, but kind of turn that to how many people say yes. We've been tracking that number of, people that just kind of go with yes with no objections. That number is right at 38% over the last several hundred of these that we've been tracking. So that's pretty good. And then, from there, I don't know how many people exactly have an objection that we have to overcome. Obviously, you could do 100 minus 38. But then there's going to be some of those, that don't close. So it's probably going to be somewhere around 30% will come back with, some type of objection that we actually get to close on, right there. And then there's going to be the people that trickle off and ultimately don't close at all.
So you said that usually do you kind of make sure that whenever you're giving presentations that you got the wife and the husband together?
No, I don't.
Thank goodness. I hate that. My wife could care less about any of this stuff.
It's so funny. It's so funny that you said that. But the company that I had kind of done some training with, one of their big requirements was husband and wife, must be present. If they'd get somewhere and the husband and wife, or both decision makers weren't there, they would essentially just walk out or say, well, I need both decision makers here. When can we reschedule it? I did not like that stuff at all. It does help when both decision makers are there, but it just doesn't feel ethical. And in some cases, like in your case, one party might not have any care. So, so it's nice when they're both there, but it's not something.
That's a pet peeve of mine. It is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think it's the best way to approach sales, but there's multiple roads to success in sales, and for some people that does work.
And I get that, and I totally get it that it works for some people, but for me, I often will say, now, I'd just rather not do the business with you. If you can't respect me as a human being to make decisions on myself, on my property, on my money, I'm the one with the money, by the way. You're trying to get my money.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I will tell you what I will do, in some cases is, if, let's say I've had this happen, meeting with a female, a woman, and she's kind of like, she kind of lets you know up front, like, okay, well, I got to talk to my husband about this. At that point, I'll kind of go through everything, but I'll make it a little quick, and kind of cut down on my time spent there. And then I'll say, hey, you know, if your husband has any questions or he'd like to meet with me, here's my card, here's my number. It's on your price, of course. Give me a call back. I'll be happy to come out here and go through it with both of you. That kind of opens the door to having both of them there. But at the same time, I'm not gonna kind of filter them out because they're both not there.
No, in fact, I've had other contractors tell me in their sell process is that by being extremely respectful, she'll often say, I can do this. I'm the one who owns this problem. I'm going to do it. It's my house, and she'll.
Yeah. I mean, you will run into that a lot too.
Yeah, interesting. So if they say yes, is there any more? Is this the end of the? Is this the end of the process? They write it up, and then you start. How do you get?
Yeah. So if they say yes, we pull out the papers and kind of fill in all the details and go from there. So that's really the end of the process, getting them to say yes, and then of course you're kind of on your own to do whatever you got to do to get the documents and the paperwork in line and get the ball rolling on it.
I love it. I love it. If you were to give our listeners a piece of advice they could take action on, what would that be?
Yeah, absolutely. So the big takeaway here is, number one, you need a structured sales presentation. You need a process that you're following through out there when you're on site. All the great salespeople, the people that are really closing a lot of projects, they all have it. They just don't show up and, kind of go into this blindly and scratch out a number on a piece of paper and walk away. They have a structured sales process, something that's measurable, almost like a funnel, where they can go through step by step, see what's happening at each step, and ultimately tweak it and refine it to kind of get to the ending process. And for people that don't like your cliche sales tactics, this is a really suitable sales presentation and suitable way of going about doing it. That's comfortable, natural, and natural. I don't even know if that's a real word. It's not a real word, but comfortable, natural. I said it again. Comfortable, natural. I respect it. So I have a feeling
Take
this
three.
won't be the last time I said natural. So yeah, and using the elements of story and trust, that's something that is wildly effective, and very few people do it. Some people might put the story on their website, but just because it's on the website doesn't mean the customers are seeing it. And even if they have seen it, it's not the same as you telling it. So by using that story, you're kind of putting some personification and differentiation between yourself and all your other competitors, because so few people are actually doing that. So few people actually include that into their sales presentation. So have a sales presentation, have one that works for you. The valve stem works for you if you're not a natural born salesperson, or you don't like sales tactics, and use the story and trust building elements that that I spoke about in there. Include them in your sales presentation.
Excellent. Corey, how can people find you online?
Yeah, so if you want to get in touch with me online, you can go to my website, which is homeprosuccess.com. From there, you can read, my bio, all my info. You can also write me a message on there using the contact form on there, and that comes to my email. So I'll get it and reply, and you can go on there, look up my own company, and see what we're all about.
Yeah, I'm actually on your website right now. Here, you have a bunch of stuff here. You've got an infographic. You have a video, a blogcast explainer video on there. There's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, so covered the valve stem sales strategy. I've got a group of about 500 contractors on Facebook. If you're a contractor or home service business owner, like carpet cleaning or something, certainly feel free to go to the website, and then that'll link you through to the Facebook group and join. The people in the group have actually kind of been exposed to the sales strategy now since January. So even though I just published it in June or July of 2018, they've actually known about it since January. And the feedback on it has been great. A lot of people are like, this is really what I needed. I was one of those people that just walked out there, wrote up the price and walked away. And now that I've got this, my sales are just going up. Because what a lot of people don't realize, so many people focus on marketing. This is one of my pet peeves in kind of the sales marketing management space. So many people focus on marketing and leads. But if you can just increase your closing rate 50%, if you can go from a 20% closing rate to a 30% closing rate without spending any money, I mean, you've just added a huge boost to your bottom line. I mean, that can take you from $1 million company to a $1.5 million company without spending a further penny on marketing and advertising. And so many people, contractors in particular, overlook that part of the whole sales cycle.
Here. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Love
it.
No
need to spend any more money on no need to spend any more money on marketing. Just work on that sales process and closing more deals, and you're golden.
Excellent. Corey, thank you for visiting Sales Babble. This has been a ton of fun.
Pat, thanks for having me on the podcast. Really happy to do it.
Can you see how you can use this strategy in your selling? Somehow describing what the price is right off the get-go or right in the middle of it. I had people the other day telling me about how they hated being asked about the question of the price. They didn't know how to answer, especially if it's a range. And I told them, I love that question. Actually, people say, well, how much is it? You say, well, it all depends. If you want this little thing, it could be very little. If you want this big thing, it could be a lot. What do you want? It's like an opportunity actually for you to ask a qualifying question and to start investigating deeper into what is the things that they're really all about. I think it's actually an opportunity. And I think it can be for you too. To connect with Corey, you can find him and links to his website at www.salesbabble.com/229. If you got a question or a comment about this episode or any of the past episodes, don't hesitate to reach out and connect. You can find me easily on the website at salesbabble.com by clicking the Babble Me button, or you can send me an email, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm there all the time. Just reach out, connect request, and we can LinkedIn message each other. That's all I got for this week. Until next, take care and have a highly successful and profitable selling day.
Think you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.